Hello everyone, good afternoon. So welcome to today's webinar on the Modern Agile Toolkit. So over the next 1 hour, we are going to learn how we can save 10 plus hours every sprint per developer using Agile, AI and Jira Automation. So before starting, I'd like to give a quick introduction about myself. I am Rabi Saikia. I am a trainer with SkillUpRight. Prior to that, I have worked with MNCs like Cognizant, Mindtree, and Wipro for 20 years. And my experience is centered on Agile and Scrum delivery. I have trained professionals across organizations in Agile ways of working. I'm an Agile enthusiast. I believe that if Agile principles are adopted in the right way, then it eliminates waste and it helps us deliver faster and smoother, right? So this is about me. And before we get started, I would like to lay a few ground rules for this webinar. In the interest of time, I'm going to take up all your questions only at the end. I will ask some questions in between, please reply to those in the chat window in your Teams. And if you have any questions for me, please leave those in the Q&A window, okay, so that we don't confuse. And before I would also like to run a quick poll to understand your experience in Agile, just to know what kind of a crowd this is, who I am going to address today. So Vinod, you can just start the poll. So folks, please respond to the poll so that I know my audience. So Vinod, is the poll over? I don't see the results. So 65 responses. Okay, I see that there are most of the people have worked on Agile, but we also have 17% who have zero experience in Agile. So I believe that this webinar is going to help a lot of folks. For the folks who don't have any experience in Agile, I'm sure that in your future work on or in future when you adopt Agile, then this will definitely help. And I'll see if I can do a webinar on how we can adopt Agile as well. But today's topic, it will be a bonus for you, basically. Okay, so don't worry about Agile, but you can still learn about these principles and implement them later as well. So I want to ask you all one question. Do you all really think that you spend all the 10 working days in the sprint in a productive manner? Do you think that you really have all those 10 days to do productive work in your sprint? Can you reply in yes or no? Yeah, most of the people have, I am seeing some responses. Like most of the people are replying no, right? So yes, so that is where this will come handy. We know that we have a lot of time killers every sprint. Some we know, some are hidden. We don't even know what they are. That is taking most of our time. So first, we should understand what the hidden time killers are in every sprint. So here I will show you a few time killers and what are the causes of those. So here are they. So waiting, mostly we wait for approvals and clarifications. A lot of time goes in these activities. Context switching, we have too many things which are work in progress, but we don't finish any, which again delays the outcome. Searching, because information is scattered. Sometimes we have to look up in central repository, which is again scattered, a central repository of our organization, or we have to look up information in the internet, which is again a time consuming. Dependencies. So we can have both internal and external dependencies. meetings. So we go to meetings without any agenda, or there would be an agenda, and then we divert, focus gets shifted, which again is a time waste. Manual tasks. There are a lot of repetitive tasks which can be automated, but we don't do so, and we keep doing those tasks manually over and over again, which is again a time killer. Rework, which happens mostly due to poor requirements and not understanding the requirements correctly. And another one is reporting, which is again done manually when there are ways that the reporting can be automated, and we can project the results much faster. So these are some of the hidden time killers in every sprint. And I believe most of you would agree that you all face similar time killers in the sprint, because of which you are not able to complete your work, right? So here is a hard-hitting truth. Okay, here, if there are any managers in this group, you can take it with a pinch of salt. The others, you can definitely go back and tell to your team leads, managers, and scrum masters that your biggest productivity gains come from removing waste, not from asking people to work faster. So working faster is not going to solve the problem. First, we have to look at where the waste is getting generated, and we need to look at how we can eliminate the waste, which will automatically help us to work faster and achieve our sprint goals. So here we will look at a few real tools that remove this waste, and I'll group them into 5 toolboxes. Okay, that is what the agenda is all about. This webinar is all about. So the Agile Toolkit, 5 toolboxes for removing sprint waste. So here we will be discussing 5 toolboxes, each having its own set of techniques, which you can implement directly, and you can save some time. So the first one is save planning time, story slicing, AI refinement. I will be covering these techniques. The second one, save development time, where we will be discussing about walking skeleton, feature flags, swarming. The third one, save collaboration time. We can have better collaboration without more meetings, which everyone I'm sure will like it. Improve flow, reduce delays. So we'll talk about WIP limits, flow metrics, and dependencies. Last but not the least, save reporting time, how we can achieve faster reporting with the help of Jira automation and AI assistance. So these are the 5 toolboxes that we are going to cover in our webinar today. So yeah, let's get started. So moving on to the first toolbox, save planning time. Okay. So the idea here is to have fewer debates. We clarifying and reworking on the backlog item should be eliminated. We should have clearer criteria and less rework. So during planning, we usually have a lot of debates, and we are not clear on the requirements and who should work on it. There will be a lot of confusions, right? So we are going to learn how we can eliminate some of those, and which will help us to work in a faster manner. So the first technique, story slicing. So you might have, or you might already know about this, but we need to we need to understand this further, how we can do with the help of different techniques. So we need to slice by value, not by layer. So a common mistake that we usually do, right, is splitting by technical layer, like front end, back end, database. So in this case, what happens? Nothing is usable until every layer is done. Um, uh, and we don't get a working software at the end of the sprint. Instead of that, do it this way, split by user value or user outcome. So ask yourself this question, can a user benefit from this today? So once you get an answer for this, you will automatically know how or whether to split the story in a particular manner or not. So every slice is independently valuable, which will help in faster planning and fewer surprises later in the sprint, right? So some of the story slicing patterns, okay. So there are some patterns which you can implement to do the story slicing. So they are workflow steps. So when we talk about workflow steps, it's the user's journey. Like for example, if you take you want to do a checkout. So you have to enter your before that you need to have your the cart ready. You need to enter your information. You need to enter the payment details, shipping details. You need to click on the checkout button. So these are some of the steps, right? So different features or different modules will have its own workflow. So you can split by you can slice the stories based on this workflow steps. So each workflow step can be one story, and you can even refine it down further. If it is still a larger story, you can still refine it down further using further techniques that we will discuss. So next is business rules. So business rules is something like, for a new user, you want to give a certain kind of a promotion. Then if a user makes a purchase of more than 2000 rupees, then you want to give a particular offer or a discount. Then there are gold customers for who you want to give a particular kind of a discount. So these are some of the examples of business rules that we may be using in our project. So you can split your stories for each business rule. You can have a single story, because some in some cases, people just combine all of them and try to work on it, which does not work out, and it always gets carried over. Next is data types. Like when you want to search for, you want to make a search. So you can search by the order ID, say the customer name, the date range, price range, etc. So these are data types. So you can slice by one data type can be one story. User roles. User roles is something like, the customer who can only view the order, the customer care agent who can view the customer's order, then a manager level person who can view the customer's orders over a region. Then the admin user who can have all kinds of permissions. So this is so different user roles are there. So if your project really has something to do with user roles, then you can split by user roles, and you can make it the smallest the smallest piece of code, and you can work on that. So happy path versus error handling. So happy path is the simplest successful path that helps that we can work on the smallest working software. The successful path that can be one single story, and then we can split by the different error scenarios. Each can be one story. Like when you say error scenarios, it's like timeout, the payment failure, a retry, or sometimes duplicate payment. So these scenarios each can be handled as a separate story. Then devices, whether you are developing it for the mobile or the web, and according to different interfaces, you can split it. Permissions. So permissions and user roles is somewhat similar, but permissions are along with user roles. You can also have like view, update, create, approve. So these are some of the different kinds of permissions. So you may not have user roles which is applicable to your project. You may have permissions, or you can have user roles and not permissions. So I'm not saying that all of this is applicable to all your projects or initiatives. So whichever is suitable for your project, you can implement that, and you can decide based upon what kind of project you are working on, and you can apply the pattern slicing pattern accordingly. Everything may not be applicable for all projects. So this way we will be able to achieve faster planning sessions, smaller stories, and this will lead to fewer surprises mid sprint. Okay. And above and over these slicing patterns, we can also use two checklists, Spider and Invest. So most of you would have already heard about Invest. Spider, maybe not many of you. So what is Spider? A Spider tells us how I can make the story small enough. So S stands for spike, P for path, I for interface, D for data, R for rules. So once you have decided what pattern you want to use to slice your stories, you can further use this checklist to check that is the story small enough. So suppose it is the work that you are deciding to go by workflow. Again, in that you want to still do some investigation for some gray areas. So you can create a spike, you can create the happy path, then the interface, then the data, then the rules. So basically this can be applied upon the patterns that you have selected for your project. Now invest. So once you have done the slicing, now it is time for us to know whether the story is really ready to be worked on, and it is meeting the invest principles. So invest is the story independent? Is it negotiable? Is it valuable? Is it estimable? Is it small, or is it testable? So if it meets all of these criteria, then your story is perfectly ready. There is very less chance that you are going to get stuck in the middle of the sprint. Okay, so everything, your stories become smaller and smaller and clearer if you are able to apply all these principles. And one thing before I keep going ahead, I want to tell you guys is that all these new things that you are learning or you might already know might look like a overhead in the beginning, that now you have to apply something new or use something new. Yes, in the beginning, for maybe 2 3 sprints or a few sprints more, it might look like a overhead or more of work. But once you are habituated to use these principles, then you will see the results, how your sprints are becoming more smoother and you are able to achieve your work faster. So anything if we learn newly, that is definitely it is going to be challenging, but once you start doing it over and over, it is going to become simple, and this is going to save a lot of time for you. So keep that in mind when I'm going through the different techniques. Okay, so only it will be an initial challenge, later it is going to definitely be helpful for you. So with that, I'll come to the second technique under save planning time. So you can definitely use AI assisted refinement and acceptance criteria. So AI is all over the place, right? So why not leverage AI to make our life easier? So the product owner drafts the epic stories and AC before refinement. So this is the traditional method which has been going on for a long time. This is how we do our refinement. What AI does is helps us to break the stories further into smaller units. So what we can do once we go for the grooming with the product owner having the stories broken down and the acceptance criteria in place, we can give AI the epic, the business objective, and the constraints. You can also give whatever the product owner, whatever stories he or she has broken down, and you can ask AI to rewrite the stories, suggest acceptance criteria, identify dependencies, generate test ideas, and story splits. So here AI basically works with you as a brainstorming partner rather than the team collaborating, discussing, and which needs a lot of time. We can take the help of AI to help us in the brainstorming. And AI, once it gives you the results, so it is up to us to decide what we want to keep, or what is in scope and what is not in scope. So basically, AI is our partner for the brainstorming, and it is us, the humans, who are going to decide. So if you have a proper acceptance criteria which the AI polishes, so basically if you don't have a proper acceptance criteria, then it can lead to different interpretations, more defects, rework, and delayed testing, right? So with the help of AI, we can get more polished and refined acceptance criteria, and the stories will be split in a better manner. So please try to leverage AI wherever possible during your refinement sessions. So this is the technique two. I have only these two techniques for safe planning time. So next, let's move on to the second toolbox, which is the save development time. So in save development time, we want to cut the time lost to late integration, blocked releases, and unfinished work in progress so that we can deliver working software sooner. So here we will discuss a few techniques like walking skeleton, feature flags, swarming. So the technique one, the walking skeleton. Okay, deliver the smallest end-to-end slice first, then expand it. So we have already seen during slicing like how we are going to eliminate slicing by front end, back end database, etc. So that we have already achieved during slicing, right? So that is how we are going to build now. So we will work on the tiny working end-to-end solution first, and then we will build on that. Okay, so we will prove that the happy path works, and then we will expand it slice by slice. So this is directly related to how you are slicing. That is the way you create a walking skeleton, and then you build on that. So the benefit of this is integration surprises appear on day one and not on the last day of the sprint. So the next one is technique two, the feature flags. So how many of you are already using feature flags? Do you have any idea? Are you already using feature flags? Can you reply in the chat window? Okay. I see quite a few people using feature flags, so that is good. So feature flags is nothing but it's a switch that lets you deploy code to production while controlling whether users can access the feature. So basically, sometimes what happens, you have to wait for one particular feature to release all other features into production. But that particular feature may be taking some time, or it is a complex one, but it is tightly coupled with the rest of your code and it goes to production, right? So what you can do, you can set a feature flag in your a flag in your code, and you can write your code within a if else bracket, so that only if the feature flag is turned on, you need to it should work in a particular manner. If it is off, then you should display something else. So when you have all the features ready and you are ready to roll out, only then you can turn on your feature flag. So the problem with removes is that in the traditional approach, the whole release waits for the slowest feature. So one unfinished feature can hold back 10 completed ones. So feature flags break that dependency. So if you want to, you don't have to wait for all of your code to turn on the product. You can turn it on like in smaller modules or smaller features with the help of the feature flags. So feature flag is nothing but you just set a flag in the code and you control it through the code. So how feature flags save time? So challenge, one feature blocks the release. How feature flags help? Release completed features independently. Then large stories span multiple sprints. With the help of feature flag, you can deliver finished slices while hiding unfinished functionality. Risky changes. So you can roll out gradually and monitor the results. Customer validation. So test with a small user group before full release. So these are some of the benefits of using feature flags. So the third technique, I really love this technique actually, swarming. Stop starting and start finishing. Okay, one common mistake even I have experienced with my teams is that once a person is done with his or her work, immediately they will jump onto a new story. But there will be others in the team who might still be working, they might be blocked, and as a team, we are not able to achieve the sprint goal because we are stuck with something, right? So instead of everyone working on a different story, the team temporarily comes together to finish one important story. So instead of three people blocked on one story, everyone else starts something new, and work in progress keeps climbing. We should learn to swarm. Okay, so where the whole team solves the blocker, the story finishes and shifts, only then everyone continues with a new story. So this is something I used to keep telling my teams, that stop starting anything new, finish whatever is there, finish the sprint whatever is there, which aligns with the sprint goals. So please remember, busy teams don't always deliver. I mean, if you are busy, it does not mean that you are delivering. Teams that finish work deliver value, right? So if you are able to complete your work, only then you are delivering some value to the customer. Just by being busy, you are not. So with that, I'm done with the second toolbox, which is save development time. We'll move on to the third toolbox, which is save collaboration time. So here we will be looking at three techniques, three amigos, working agreements, acing stand-ups. So, see, the biggest delay is waiting for a human, and I'm sure everyone will agree. Like these are some of the statements which we often hear, right? I'm waiting for the product owner to clarify the requirement. The code review is still pending. QA hasn't picked it up yet. Let's schedule another meeting. I didn't know this dependency existed. And what is the bottom line? The hidden fact in this is waiting. We always keep waiting for something to happen, right? So collaboration delays are often larger than the development effort itself. The fix isn't to collaborate more, but it is to collaborate better. That is with the right people at the right time and using the right techniques. Okay, so that is where we will look at a few techniques how we can improve the collaboration. So the technique one, three amigos, clarify before you build. Okay, so who takes part in this three amigos? The business analyst or the product owner, the developer, and QA engineer. So what happens in three amigos? See, normally in backlog refinement, which is a continuous process, sprint on sprint, you will be looking at all the stories in your backlog, and you will be keeping it ready for all upcoming sprints, right? You will be discussing in your grooming meetings. You will come up with your questions. As I said earlier, you might use AI also. But sometimes what happens is still, even after all these things, when you want to start a story, you might still be stuck and you might have some last moment questions, right? So that is when you can only these three people, the product owner, developer, and the QA engineer who are going to work on it, can come together once again, have a 10-15 minutes meeting to have the final level of understanding so that they are all on the same page before starting the work. So in this way, one story is discussed at a time, and it will be a more focused discussion on that story alone. Okay. But three amigos is not only it can happen just before starting the story. Sometimes when, say for example, one developer or a QA engineer is going through the backlog, and they come across some story which looks really complex and might not have much of a clarity during the all the questions may not be answered during grooming. So even before going for the grooming, that developer, and maybe you can add one QA engineer or maybe the QA lead with the product owner, and have a focused discussion on that story, so that when the refinement comes, there is more clarity for the team to discuss. So three amigos can have happen at different stages, but most it will be beneficial if we just before starting the story, these many people can come together for 10-15 minutes and resolve any last minute clarifications that you may have. So the typical agenda for a three amigos meeting will be like a story walkthrough, business rules, acceptance criteria, edge cases, test scenarios, or any open questions. So the next technique, moving on, the team working agreements. Okay, so this working agreements, it is something which should be set in the at the beginning of the project, when the project kickoff happens. So all the team members come together and set some rules for themselves, which they are going to follow throughout the duration of the project. It's not the management who is imposing the rules. It is us, the team, who is going to set these rules, so that everyone's have a same explicit understanding, and these rules will be team owned. Okay, so some of the so you can just document it and keep it in Word, or you can keep it on on your whiteboard also, or you can keep it on Confluence. So these working agreements will help us to be aligned and to have the same set of expectations when a certain event happens during the project execution. So like a situation, these are some of the examples. Okay, it's not that you have to write it in the exact same way. So pull request review, so it should be reviewed within 24 hours. That's the team's agreement. Blockers, so it should be escalated after one business day. Messages, it should be answered within 2 hours, 2 working hours. Meetings, so you can decide to have no meetings on Wednesday afternoon, so that everybody can be focused. Meeting length, 25 minutes maximum. It need not be 25, it can be 35, it can be 14, but set some time so that we are having more focused discussions, right? So these agreements are not imposed by the management, they are agreements created by the team. And these working agreements need not be some 20-30 points. Okay, just the very important few 8 to 10 points, which everybody can remember and can follow throughout the sprint. Everything we need not bring to the team working agreements. So that was technique 2. The technique 3 is asynchronous stand-ups, and I'm sure many of you would like this idea. So in a traditional stand-up, what happens? 15 people join a meeting. Yeah, I know a Scrum team is 9 members, but then there will be some leads or some managers, project managers, QA manager will be joining the meeting. 10 of them just listen. Only 2 or 3 people need to interact. Focus time is gone for everyone. So instead, we can think of a better approach is to use async updates for routine status. So what we can do as part of that is, say, you can select a time, say before 9 a.m. or before 10 a.m. Everyone needs to post their updates in the team channel. What I completed yesterday, what I'm working on today, and if there are any blockers. And then only the blockers are discussed synchronously. What are the benefits of this? So it preserves focus time, it reduces context switching, it supports distributed teams across time zones. This is very important. This is a major benefit for the distributed teams. So please remember, this does not replace collaboration, but it makes the meetings purposeful. Now you may ask, like, if we are posting the updates, nobody reads and we may miss out on important information. Okay. So let us look at a way how we can implement asynchronous stand-up in a more, in a better manner where we don't miss out on any information. So the flow monitor, making async work. So post your updates in one clear format. Maybe the team can decide on one particular format, how you can want to post your updates, like which story you are working on, what is the status, if there are any blockers, and if you need any help. So give the updates an owner. So basically, like what you can do is, like every sprint, like you can create a roster either sprint wise or weekly wise. We can have one person from the team who will be called a flow monitor, and who will be responsible to bring the any issues or any red flags to the forefront, to the team's notice. And that person is going to set up meetings only between the concerned people if it is needed. If something is blocked, who has raised the blocker, with whom it should be discussed. So that person will be responsible for setting up a meeting. But it is again everyone's responsibility to go through the updates once, because so as to know what is happening in the team. But we can eliminate time collaborating, and then reaching out to each other, setting up meetings and all. So everybody need not be involved in that. It can be that one person who can be responsible for that, and set up the meetings wherever required. So where ownership sits is everyone still owns their work. The flow monitor owns the team's attention signals. So their job is to surface what needs collaboration. A scrum master can definitely do this. Okay, we know that a scrum master can do it. But then the team may completely rely on the scrum master, and there may be some ownership lost in that. So that is why it is a good idea that the flow monitor who should be a person from the team, and it should be done on a rotational basis. Okay. So this is about async stand-ups. Now, the last technique in safe collaboration time is AI for faster communication. So you can have the AI agent enabled during your meetings, and it will help to summarize long discussions. It will help to generate meeting notes. You can draft the stakeholder updates. You can tighten longer messages into smaller ones. So basically, use AI during your meetings, your discussions, to so that AI can generate the meeting notes. You don't have to waste time writing meeting notes, recalling what was discussed, documenting. So all these things can be eliminated by bringing in AI. So AI will draft it. You check the facts, add the context, and own the message. With that, we will move on to toolbox 4, which is improve flow and reduce delays. Okay, so here we will go through WIP limits, measure flow, and handling dependencies. So the first technique is WIP limits. Busy isn't productive. So I'm sure many of you would already know about WIP limits, but for those of you who don't know, this is a very, very important tool that can be used. I think mostly it is used in Kanban, but we can use in Scrum as well. So look at developer A. So developer A is working on 7 things at once. So story 12, story 18, 20, also working on a production bug, a support ticket, a code review, and also writing meeting notes. So developer A is looking very busy, but actually nothing gets finished. Now look at developer B, one story at a time. So works on one story, completes it, and pulls the next one. So in that case, what happens by the end of the sprint, developer B would have had more stories completed and delivered. Okay. So every extra work adds context switching, waiting, communication, and handoffs. So if you set WIP limits and abide by it, then you can, the flow will be better. You can complete one thing at a time before picking up the next one. So how to set WIP limits? Because like due to the time restriction, I'm not able to show how we can set it up in Jira. But when you are setting up your Jira columns, for each column there is like you can set the maximum limit. Suppose you are the in progress column, you can set it to 2. So basically, you should be working on only 2 items at a time. And if you try to pick one more item because somebody has insisted that that is a higher priority, then it will give a red flag, and you can go back and tell that we had adhered to setting WIP limits and abide by it. So I'm not going to take this up. So WIP limits will help us understand how much work is actually should be actually on our plate, and we can work in a flow manner, not by taking everything into the sprint. Okay, and that will reduce even context switching. The second technique is measure flow, not just velocity. So you all might know, like during Scrum, if you're following Scrum, we measure velocity, and that is the key point, like based on which we plan our capacity. So based on maybe our average velocity we do, and we based on the average velocity of the last 3 sprints, we decide how much work we can complete in the current sprint, right? So that is correct. So say 20 story points you have achieved, 20 is the average for last 3 sprints. So you are going to plan for only 20 story points. Perfectly fine. You can continue to do that. Okay. But what velocity cannot answer is, when will the story finish? Why is the work getting delayed? Where exactly do stories wait? So with the well, if you're measuring only velocity, we will not be able to know these things, right? So along with velocity, it is always good to measure cycle time. That is the time from the start of the work to done. So from the time we pick up a story till it is done, that is cycle time. Lead time, from the time a request has come in to delivery, right? Block time, how long work sits in waiting. Throughput, how many items finished per period, say over a week or in a sprint, how many work items we have actually finished. Okay, so and these you can get it from the sprint report, from the cumulative, and from the control chart. You can get this data. You can also apply your filters, and you can derive this data. But if we are measuring this over a period of time, we will have a clear picture on where the waiting is mostly happening, so that then it will help us to mitigate that and eliminate that waiting time in future sprints. So measure the flow, not just the velocity. That is what technique 2 tells us. So the third technique is dependency mapping. So dependencies, they are a major time killer, right? We sometimes we don't even know what are the dependencies. We come across the dependency only when we are midway during the sprint. So that like that leads to a lot of time waste and a lot of follow-ups to and fro, information getting exchanged, right? So look at this example. As a customer, I want to pay using UPI. Looks straightforward, but what actually goes in? We might need a payment gateway API, authentication service, a bank integration, security approval, test environment, deployment approval, etc. So the payment story, a lot of things are happening at the back end. So there may be a lot of dependencies on other teams as well. So here we can see there are 4 kinds of dependencies, like team, technical, environment, and approval. So dependencies create invisible queues. So Jira may show that a particular story is in progress, but the reality is something else. The reality is that we are waiting for someone else to give us this piece of code, right? So the idea is not to eliminate the dependencies. Dependencies will always be there. You cannot escape from it, right? But what is the important thing is that the dependencies should be visible, it should be tracked, and we should be able to plan how we can mitigate the dependencies. And only if it is visible, only then we can plan properly, correct? So identify what a story depends on before the sprint starts. The goal isn't zero dependencies, it's visible, plan once. So here are 5 steps how we can plan for visible, how we can make dependencies visible. So step 1, we should identify the story. Ask yourself, what does this story depend upon? Step 3 is classify each dependency, whether it's the environment related dependency, whether it's external dependency. Also classify the dependency. Then you mitigate the risk based on the dependency. You know what to do next, how you can plan. And you track your dependencies throughout the sprint. If it is hidden, then nobody will know that there is a dependency. And definitely, again, as we discussed earlier, AI will help us to identify the dependency. So review this. You can take the help of UI, like you can say, review this user story and identify possible technical, business, security, infrastructure, and external dependencies that could delay delivery. The team then reviews and focuses on the ones that really matter. So please take the help of AI to identify dependencies. It will help us brainstorm faster and identify the dependencies faster. So once we identify the dependencies, it is very easy for us to plan accordingly. If the dependency is not identified, that is where the problem arises, right? Now we'll see 5 practical ways to reduce dependencies. As I said, dependencies cannot be eliminated, but we can definitely reduce them if we follow the below 5 techniques. So slice stories vertically, we already discussed. Each slice delivers value end to end, so it needs fewer external parts. Build cross-functional teams. So keep the skills you need inside the team rather than borrowing them. So if your team is cross-functional, different people are skilled in different areas, then you can build the product within your team itself. You don't have to depend on external teams. So we should aim at building cross-functional teams. So stop external services. So sometimes we are waiting on some piece of code from a different team. So instead of doing that, we can mock the API, and we can keep working on that. We can also use mock data for testing as well. Plan high risk dependencies first. So start the long lead items on day 1, not on day 8. So the high risk dependencies should be planned first, and then the smaller dependencies can come. Visualize dependencies. If it's not on the board, nobody manages it. So dependencies can be shown on the Jira board either through a label. You can use this blocked link, like, you can say the so and so Jira ticket is blocked by so and so, so it is visible for everyone. You can pull up the report later if you have properly used the links and you have shown the dependency, right? So these are some practical ways to reduce dependencies. So with that, I have concluded toolbox 4. So next we move on to toolbox 5, save reporting time. So the goal here isn't to spend less time communicating, but we should spend less time preparing to communicate. So we should not keep preparing ourselves. So every time somebody asks us for a report, we should not be always in a preparing mode. We should always have that data ready, so that if somebody asks for it, just go through it and give the data, right? So we will look at dashboards, Jira automation, and AI for reporting. So the first technique is stop preparing the report, create dashboards instead. Okay. So when someone, your management, or anyone asks for your what is the status of the sprint, so then someone, either the scrum master or the team lead, they start chasing the stories, blockers, risk. They create Jira filters, try to pull up all the data, then puts it all in the Excel, apply filters, and then create slides, etc., etc. Right? So this is very time consuming. So instead, create Jira dashboards. So Jira gives you very good provision to create dashboards with lot of gadgets. You can use different filters, and you can create your own. You can create your own filters. You can use the different gadgets that Jira gives, and you can. So at the beginning of the project itself, you can create a dashboard, whatever works for you, whatever data you want your leadership is seeking, and you can have everything in one place, right? So you can show sprint progress, like completed, in progress, to do, blocked. You can show work in progress, have we started more than we can finish, the flow, cycle time, throughput, block time. So all this you can get it easily from Jira only. Delivery, like sprint goal, carryover, and risk. So everything is in one place right from the beginning. You just have to change the sprint, only one place change, and every sprint on sprint, or even for the project, you can create a dashboard. So it just keeps populating from Jira. You don't have to do anything once you have a dashboard ready, right? Use Jira as a single source of truth. The conversation moves from let me prepare the report to let us look at the data. So that makes it so simple, right? You have to spend some time at the beginning of the sprint, but later everything becomes much easier to handle, right? Technique 2, Jira automation. Let Jira chase the information. So you can use Jira automation to for multiple things, for all the transitions, the workflow. And now see, if a story becomes blocked, so without automation, someone has to notice it, update the Jira, message the team, and follow up, right? One rule does it instead if you use Jira automation. So same with Jira automation. At the beginning of the project, if you set up a couple of Jira automations based on your project needs, then you don't have to keep doing all the manual work of assigning, changing the status, and if it is blocked, who should it get assigned to, etc., etc. So, for, like step one, issue moves to block. The rest of the events trigger on its own. Notify the owner, notify the scrum master, add the block label, create a follow up task. So, all these things get automatically created once, automatically done once on the event triggers. Okay. So use Jira automation as much as possible. All these things should be set up at the beginning of the project, which makes the life much easier when the project is in execution phase. So you can also automate the release notes similarly to how you do Jira automation, filter completed issues by fixed version, generate notes, and share them with the stakeholders. Again, the third technique, AI as the reporting assistant. So as I have been repeating multiple times, so even for reporting, you can use AI. So it can help to summarize the sprint report. It can highlight achievements, blockers, risk, carryover, etc. Coming to retrospectives, AI can help in a great way. So sometimes in retrospectives, you'll get a lot of comments, right? And then the Scrum Master has to group similar comments or that belong to the similar issue types, and then the team discusses on the action items. But if you have an AI agent, it does in a few minutes itself. So group these 50 comments into themes and name the top three causes of delay. So if you use AI for your retrospectives, then AI will give you like like themes like environment issues, requirement clarity, dependency delays, code review bottlenecks, testing capacity, etc. So AI will do the pattern finding, and the team does the decision making, and a human validates the output. So basically, all this while what we have been talking in any of the techniques in any of the toolboxes, try to use AI so that a lot of your work gets faster and a lot of your time is saved. Instead of doing the repetitive work, you can use AI. So very important, automate work, not the conversations. So AI will do, it will help you eliminate time, like, in status updates, repetitive Jira transitions, data collection, report generation, etc. But please always protect these retros, product and risk decisions, sprint goals, stakeholders. So not everything should be automated. We should still have collaborations, interactions. That is how we build successful teams. So those things should not be eliminated. Using AI does not mean that we should not collaborate at all. Just we have to draw the line where we want to use AI and where we want to still have human collaboration. Okay. So before using AI, you do all your work in Jira, Excel, slides, email, meetings, which takes a lot of hours. If you are using automation and AI, so you can have dashboards, you can do automation, AI summary, and decision. So these takes just few minutes, and you have to just interpret the results. Okay. So with that, I have covered all the 5 toolboxes that I intended to within this limited time that I had. So one habit that we learned from all of these is to remove the weight. And now I want to know what you want to take back to your team. So before that, we will run a quick poll. Okay, I want to know which of the techniques your team is already using currently. I'll give you, in the interest of time, I mentioned 3 minutes, but probably like you will have 2 minutes. So there are 10 questions. Please respond to all of your questions. Just you have to select yes or no, which tool you are using. And you click next to continue to the next question. So I'll give you 2 minutes and I'll take the help of Vinod to help me start the poll. Yeah, go ahead. Not able to see the poll results. Okay, 1 second. Okay, 71 responses. So I'll just quickly look at the results. Okay, so WIP limits, many people are already using it. AI refinement, people are using. Three amigos, many people are using. Team agreements, it's a good number. Example mapping, people are using. Story slicing, okay. Okay, flow metrics, dependency mapping, Jira automation, walking skeleton. Okay, so now the based on what you have answered in the poll, so you yourself can identify like where are the areas that you can improve. So wherever you have answered no, so you can start implementing one of the techniques, and you can one by one you can pick up on the others as well. Okay, so 4 things to take back to your team. So eliminate waiting. So most delay is queue time, not coding time. Reduce work, clarify before you build. Three amigos and sharp acceptance criteria. Automate repetitive work. Jira rules and AI drafts give hours back every sprint. Optimize flow, not utilization. So a busy team isn't always a delivering team. Limit work and finish it. So these are some of the takeaways that you can take back to your team from this webinar. So any questions do you have? I don't see. Okay. Yeah. So I see only one question. I'm not sure if this is right. So is it always necessary to freeze the requirements before sprint starts? So yes, the sprint goal should always be freezed. We should not change the sprint goal during the duration of the sprint. That is why it is always a good idea to slice the stories as far as possible to reduce context switching, to set the WIP limits. So we should not change the sprint goal basically. So even if there is, so that is why, to eliminate the waste, like the time that we waste, it is good to adopt all these things, so that we do not alter the sprint goal. Any more questions? I don't see more questions. Yeah, so that's about it. I want to thank everyone for your participation and for answering to the polls. I hope that this webinar will benefit you at least in some ways, so that you can implement the techniques discussed. At least one or two of the techniques you can start with if you are not doing already, and then you can build upon that. So the basic idea is to eliminate waste and make our work faster. So with that, I would like to conclude the webinar. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Vinod, for your help and support.